Let's be real, it's hard to get excited about something as mundane as a kitchen sponge.
But hold on, the humble sponge might just be the unsung hero responsible for creating and preserving the world we know today.
These resilient creatures have survived every catastrophe and mass extinction, and they just might outlast all of us, too.
Today, we're here to convince you that the seemingly ordinary sponge is actually a superhero in disguise. Let's go! Full disclosure, until recently, sponges weren't on our radar.
They are a blob of weirdly squishy, porous tissue that just sort of sits on the seafloor. And to be brutally honest, they really don't even make the most interesting fossils. I mean, have you seen a Dunkleosteus? There is like no comparison, people. Sorry, sponges.
Honestly, you'd be forgiven for not knowing about better animals.
But once we discovered how crucial sponges have been in shaping our world, we had to help you appreciate the wondrous sponge. They are pretty much everywhere, from Antarctica to deep sea vents to tide pools at your favorite beach to pineapples under the sea.
Let's rewind to the beginning to show you what makes sponges so extraordinary.
About 3.5 billion years ago, single-cell life emerged, but it wasn't until much later that multicellular life, including the first animal, showed up on our planet.
Everything suggests that sponges were among the earliest of these, with fossils dating back to around 890 million years ago.
And genetic data from modern sponges supports this ancient lineage that probably looked a lot like your favorite bath sponge. Now, sponges are remarkably diverse creatures. It's estimated that 5,000 species are alive today, and they all share several fundamental characteristics.
First, they're multicellular organisms, but they lack organs.
Secondly, they have pores and canals that have these sort of delicate hair-like structures that move water through the channels, enabling them to filter out food particles such as plankton. Yum. Finally, despite their squishy appearance, most sponges have a skeleton composed of pointy spicules that either serve as structural support or defense mechanisms.
Although they may not look like typical animals, sponges fulfill the basic criteria of the animal kingdom.
They are multicellular with tightly interconnected cells that produce collagen externally, distinct from the cellulose found in plants, and they feed on organic material.
As the earliest animals, sponges have weathered every cataclysmic event and mass extinction Earth threw at them, including being encased in ice for millions of years during Snowball Earth.
Ooh, an event so complicated and critical to our history that we made you a special video to tell you all about it.
Snowball. And while the cold temperatures of Snowball Earth were certainly no joke, it wouldn't have been the only hardship these early sponges would have faced.
No, these early oceans were also extremely low in oxygen. But as it turns out, that's no problem for the sponge. Experiments with modern-day sponges have shown that by changing their shape and their structure, they can still survive with oxygen levels as low as 1.5% air saturation.
So no air, no problemo.
And this is a skill that they have passed on to their offspring, some of which are even more fantastically superpowered. One of the ways sponges reproduce in extreme conditions is by creating a little sac of embryonic cells called a gemule. And these things are basically unstoppable. They can survive without any oxygen at all, they can dry out for months, they can survive forces 20 times Earth's gravity and live through temperatures and levels of radiation far beyond what any human could ever endure, and still develop into a healthy sponge.
See, offspring are often hardier than their parents.
The joy.
Let's keep going.
And while just surviving the snowball period in Earth's history would have been enough of an accomplishment, some scientists actually think that sponges played a role in oxygenating these early seas, paving the way for diverse life like us to flourish.
They're more than survivors, they're ecosystem engineers.
And it was what they ate that helped them most. You see, sponges eat plankton. In particular, they ate the cyanobacteria that were abundant in the seas at this time. Now, these cyanobacteria made oxygen, but they didn't make enough oxygen to promote levels that are needed for bigger, more complex animals to really take hold and thrive. So, by eating the cyanobacteria and by also eating the nutrients that cyanobacteria needed to survive, sponges made room for bigger photosynthesizers like algae to really take hold and pump some life into our planet.
And that's not all, folks. Sponges were also remarkably able to survive every single mass extinction. Chicxulub survived, volcanoes survived, humans hunting down all the woolly mammoths and stuff survived, us eventually polluting our planet survived.
Probably that too. If you look at the aftermath of the first N-Ordovician extinction, we see sponges rising to rule again, likely because they're so well equipped to tolerate changes in temperature and acidity and oxygen levels. So at a time when 85% of species were all dying off, sponges flourished, and their presence likely helped stabilize the post-extinction world. And this same pattern is repeated after every subsequent mass extinction.
They're like the world's best house guests, adapting and stabilizing ecosystems during turbulent times.
Making sponges all the more likely to adapt to extreme conditions brought on by climate change that we may experience now and in the future. So when you see a sponge fossil, remember, they are ancient architects of Earth's beauty.
In fact, some of the world's most stunning landscapes owe their beauty and resilience to ancient sponge fossils.
For example, you may find them in the stunning cliffs of the Permian Reef Trail at Guadalupe Mountains National Park in Texas, and in the Grand Canyon's Kaibab Formation, the rock layer closest to the rim, which is an important clue for another sponge superpower. You see, sponge spicules are made of carbonate or silica, and when the sponge dies, that silica falls to the sea floor and becomes chert, which is very hard and very durable and resists erosion.
Because there were so many sponges in the ancient seas that covered this landscape millions of years ago, there's a good bit of chert in these layers, which is helping the rim of the Grand Canyon resist erosion,
creating the beautiful scenes we enjoy today. So the next time you see a sponge, give it a nod of appreciation. They do so much more than the dishes. Which reminds me, it is your night to do the dishes.
I did it last night.
Nope, your night.
I did it last time.
Dad's night?
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry, Dad.